Hi, and welcome to Toni Time. Well, we have a show that's going to be very interesting, very informative for you today. So go get your coffee if you're watching us in the morning or afternoon. If it's night, go get your cocktail. You're going to enjoy this. So we want to welcome to our show. Jen, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's good to be here. And as I know, the audience, Boots to Roots, we're going to talk about that and explain to you what's going on, Jen's involvement, and we're going to learn. So get ready to learn. So welcome to the show, so I mean you're now living in Maine, correct?
I am. Yep. I live in Biddeford.
Okay.
Been here for about a year and a half.
Okay, great. And you were in the military.
I was.
For how many years?
I was in the military for 24 years. Wow. I got commissioned through Air Force ROTC program at University of Northern Colorado. Served for 24 years, and I retired September of 2015.
Wow.
And we got to Maine as quick as we could.
So how is retirement? It sounds like you're busier than ever.
Retirement, when you say you retire from the military, in my mind, it's sort of a transition completely. It's not really a retirement because I'm certainly not retired. It's sort of retiring out of one phase of your life, of your career, and sort of entering into another phase.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's kind of a rollover where you're not completely like when people say you are retired. This is not the same at all.
No, most people who retire from the military, the majority of folks who retire from the military are still in their 40s.
Yeah.
And they are not done.
No.
There's a lot left to do.
Well, you come to the table with a lot to offer.
Thank you.
You really do. So now explain to us, Boots to Roots, what is it about? Where are you today? I'm just going to let you go.
Okay. Well, it's one of my favorite topics.
Good.
So Boots to Roots was born around 2014. My friend Dave Hickey is the founder of Boots to Roots, and John Manganello is the co-founder. John Manganello is a civilian and has never served in the military, but he certainly serves the military these days.
Okay.
And Dave Hickey and I used to fly together when I was in the military. I've known him for over 20 years. He is somebody who I respect dearly, and I tell people I would take a bullet for him. That's the level of respect that I have for him. He retired a couple years before I did. He is from West Gardner, Maine. Okay. His family is connected in West Gardner, Maine. They're a logging family. He has stayed connected the whole time that he was in the service. He retired after 23 years of service, came back to West Gardner, Maine, and he ran into a lot of roadblocks, kind of where to start with trying to find employment, with trying to find services. And he even had an interview with one fairly well-known employer, and the HR person who was interviewing him said, "I can't believe that you don't have PTSD with all those deployments."
Wow.
That was sort of a trigger for him, and he said, "You know what, if I have stayed connected to my roots in Maine, and I've been in contact this whole time, and I've been in 23 years, and I come out and I'm having these issues. What's it like for that person who's only been in for 4 to 6 years and maybe hasn't even stayed connected, or somebody who isn't even from Maine? I'm not from Maine originally.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And so he said, you know, and I want to be part of this solution. And so he started doing Boots to Roots. He and his co-founder John started doing Boots to Roots and helping folks by word of mouth. And so they would tell people what they wanted to do and what they were interested in helping with. And folks in town would say, you know, oh, my son, you know, Bob is coming back, you know, in 2 months. Can you hook up with him and help him out? And so that's sort of how Boots to Roots sort of started to develop. And Dave and John helped about 15 folks in about a year and a half period. So he called me in January of 2015, which is when I was just beginning my serious job search. And he told me about Boots to Roots, and he asked if I would be involved, and I said absolutely. You know, Boots to Roots' mission is to bridge the gap from serving our country to strengthening Maine communities. And that gap it was identified in a 2015 Maine Bureau of Economic Policy report. it was a report about veterans and veteran services and some of the gaps and so forth. And there were a few areas where it talked about lack of mentorship, lack of outreach, and a lack of a one-stop shop. And the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services has done an amazing job in the last year, or I mean more than the last year, but they've really focused on that in the last year, and some legislation has come out as a result, or at least addressing those issues. However, the gap still really remains on trying to reach out to folks before they come back to Maine. For instance, if you're serving in the military and say, for instance, you've been in for 10 years, you have a fairly responsible job, you are definitely in charge of people, you get a good paycheck, you have dental and dental and medical benefits, family programs, a big support network, and then you separate from the military and you come back to Maine and you are starting over again.
It's like you're lost.
And meanwhile, you're trying to find a home, get your kids settled in school, get a job. And oh, by the way, hopefully you have a 6-month plan so that you have money saved up so that, you don't, if you don't get a job right away, you can sustain. But that's a very stressful period. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, actually, who said, when you're in the military, you have an identity, you know who you are, and it very much tied sometimes, most of the time, to your rank, your position, what you do, and you have these very clear lines that are outlined, very bright outlines, and then you go from that to joining the civilian world for the first time in many years, many times, and those lines disappear, and all of a sudden you're sort of starting all over and saying, who am I and where do I fit into this world? And people do fit in. We just have to help them realize where they fit in. And so that gap that we're trying to fill is really that area from where folks are saying, I'm separating or retiring and I'm planning to go to Maine, to when they touch down in Maine. There's a vast network of services in Maine. Maine is one of the most veteran-friendly states. We have one of the highest per capita veterans in number of veterans per capita in the country. And so there's lots and lots of support. However, it's very overwhelming coming back. You don't know anybody. You come back. Maine Bureau of Veteran Services is an amazing website, but still when you go to that website, a lot of folks are a little bit overwhelmed by reaching out.
Sure they are.
And so now when you get back to Maine, you're getting your kids settled, you're getting your house, and you're sort of starting from scratch. And there's actually a benefit that you can get for unemployment when you separate from the military, and you can get that benefit up to 26 weeks. So that's okay. You get back, you're settled, you start collecting unemployment, and now you're looking for a job, and you have to be enrolled in the job Maine bank, and to get that unemployment benefit and so forth. And you can have up to 26 weeks of that. Well, if we can help people prepare while they're still on active duty, help them prepare their resumes, get them in the right mindset, help them figure out where they want to focus, and then do networking for them. Start laying that networking groundwork, right? Then hopefully we shrink the amount of time that they don't have a job when they get back, and they can try to get financially stable, and shrink the amount of time that they're collecting unemployment. As a side note, I just read a report. It's a veterans report on I forget the name of the report. I'm sorry. It's a 2015 report by the VA, and there is a thing called a UCX rate, which is the unemployment for ex-service members. It's that benefit, and this report noted that from 1988 to 2013, Maine was the #1 state for the longest amount of time that folks are utilizing that benefit. I don't know all the other research and data that goes behind that, but the bottom line is that's a significant fact. That's over $20 million over that couple decade period. So, it not only helps the veterans, but economically for the state if we can reduce that amount of time. So what Boots to Roots' mission, like I said, is to bridge the gap from serving our country to strengthening Maine communities. And how do we do that? We accomplish that by trying to help lay a networking groundwork for folks while they're still on active duty. We also help to connect them and help them navigate the various transition services that are out there, and help them prepare and search for jobs. all of those things are really heavily based on relationships and based on trust. Our values at Boots to Roots are community, integrity, sincerity, and simplicity. And maintaining that trust, building those relationships, prepping the person who's still on active duty, building a relationship with this organization or this company that might be able to, might benefit from having this great talent. We're trying to build those relationships and start to slowly make those connections for people, so that hopefully when they get back, they're going to be able to get hired into a decent paying job much more quickly.
Now, when they're still in active duty, is it the fact that you're approaching the people who live in Maine, or is this anybody who lives anywhere, or are we talking about the people coming back to Maine?
What we're trying to do is connect with the people who are coming back to Maine.
Okay.
There are, like I said, there's a number of services in Maine that are designed to help the folks who are back here. And we try to network with all those, because we're not trying to replace any services.
No.
We're trying to be a part of this puzzle that hooks into the rest of the puzzle.
Great.
That is the Maine Military and Community Network in Maine. And for instance, the career centers, the Department of Labor career centers in Maine are fantastic. I work with the folks from most of the different career centers, and they've referred folks to us, and I refer everybody to them, and they've helped out in various different ways. Wow. But we're not trying to replace what they do, but what we're trying to do is get the word out to the active duty folks to contact us so we can start making these connections, which may involve connecting with the organizations that are back here, and may also involve trying to connect with some organizations or employers that we're not connected with yet. How are we trying to reach out to those folks?
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is a couple different ways.
Okay.
We are currently working on a new website because when we ask people, hey, if you know someone coming to Maine or thinking about coming to Maine, have them reach out to us, we can help them with transition. When they pull up our website, that first page ought to compel them to reach out to us.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we're working on that.
Yeah,
We're not there yet. We're still putting the legs under us, but we're working on that fact. So social media, certainly Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
One of my volunteers just started our Instagram account. So
Okay.
this is new to us. And then our Facebook page, word of mouth, getting the word out in Maine. The more we get the word out in Maine, the more the word gets out to folks who are coming back. For instance, the career centers, they've referred 3 people to us who have called the career centers and said, hey, we're coming to Maine. We're not coming for 6 months, or we're not coming for a year. The career center gives them great information, helps them out with contacts and so forth, and says, hey, contact Boots to Roots. They can help you with some of this other stuff. And the other area where we're really trying to work is in May, I had a phone call with each of the transition policy leads from all the different services, except for the Air Force. I talked with them in the summer.
Yeah.
The Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, to include a program called Marine for Life program in the Marine Corps, and the Department of Defense transition policy lead as well. So I've had personal conversations with all those folks, told them about Boots to Roots, sent them a letter and said, can you please send this information out to all of your local bases, so all the different Air Force bases, Army bases, Marine bases, Navy bases. They all have a transition office, or most of them have a transition office. And we said, please send this letter out, please get this word out to them, so if they hear about somebody coming back to Maine or thinking about coming to Maine, they can give them our website, and hopefully that they'll reach out to us. Those transition offices, there is a transition program in place, which is a great program, but it's run slightly differently at every base.
Of course.
And the Department of Labor runs most of them in most of the different areas. And it's anywhere from a 2 to 5 day program. It's supposed to be mandatory. Not everybody goes, but it is supposed to be mandatory when you're separating or retiring.
Yeah.
You go through this transition program, and you have 2 to 5 days of briefings where folks talk about VA benefits, writing resumes, interviewing, how to dress for success, and different things like that. And so it's usually a very good course. I went through it in D.C., and I thought it was very valuable. I took lots of notes.
Yeah.
But a lot of folks, while they're going through that transition program, they do take lots of notes, and I'll say I did the same thing and said, okay, I need to get to this, but I'm going to put this over here because I got all this other stuff going on right now. I've got to do my transition. I've got to, you got to prep family. You got to close out the current job that you're in, do all that paperwork, get your stuff together. And so folks tend to, not everybody, but a lot of folks tend to say, take that pile of great information and wait till they get back and then sit down and sort of try to delve through it. We're trying to help people do that,
while they're
still on
doing
active
everything
duty.
else. Yeah.
And so those transition offices, we're one state. Boots to Roots is just for Maine. There's a lot of organizations in a lot of different states that have recognized a gap, and they're trying to do similar things. I pulled up a lot of websites at various different locations. All those programs are the ones that exist out there are way ahead of us, and do quite a bit more, I think. But if a transition office has to say, what state are you going to? Okay, all these organizations, it makes it difficult. So mainly,
It does.
Mainly the Department of Labor will tell folks, reach out to your career centers in your state. And not every state is called a career center, but here in Maine, we have the career centers.
Okay.
And so most of the Department of Labor transition programs will say, reach out to your local career centers. We're hoping that they'll reach out to Boots to Roots also if you're going to Maine.
Yeah.
We just have to work on that. Now, we did have two positive responses from the Coast Guard where that process actually worked. About 2 weeks after I had a discussion with the Coast Guard lead, we had two different Coasties reach out to us. One was actually both are retiring.
Right.
One just retired in November. And one of them, we always ask, how did you hear about us? One of them heard about us. They got an email from their transition office on the East Coast. The other one got an email from their transition office on the West Coast. So we have seen that process work.
Yeah.
The Coast Guard twice, the two Coasties that we have helped both heard about us through their transition office. Other folks heard about us a number of different ways. So we're not going to stop all the different avenues we're trying to get the word out, and we will continue to develop the relationship with the transition offices. That's probably not the most efficient way to get the word out, but the more that we follow up. I sent them a follow-up about 1 quarter after I had the initial conversation.
Yeah.
And as we get some positive stories back, which we just did, we just had two of our folks hired, and one starts a training program in February. And so as we get the testimonies and the stories back, I'll send another update out on a quarterly basis to those folks, just to let them know we didn't just ask you to do this. It actually really does have a benefit.
That's great. I mean, you're keeping the lines of communication open, and that's what that's all about.
That's how Boots to Roots exists.
Yeah, it's the line of communication. It's letting people know, and the people who are reaching out to you, you're not letting it go silent.
Right.
That, I think, is always the kiss of death. You get somebody's hopes up, and they're just about to get off active duty, and they have the information, and 2 or 3 months have gone by. But it sounds like to me you still keep that line open.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who will say, okay, I'll collect this, I'll have this for later on. And in their mind, after so much has happened and passed, they're looking at that pile going, well, it probably went cold now. And that's the one thing you're not doing. You're not letting that happen.
Well, we're trying not to be intrusive, but to be supportive. And, we're a personalized approach to this.
Yeah, but that means a lot.
Yeah, and so one of the unique things about Boots to Roots, and that's where I say our webpage has to compel people to reach out to us, is, and I'm generalizing here because every veteran's story is different. Every person separating is different. We have there's different ranks, different jobs, different motivations, everything. But a lot of folks will hesitate to reach out to the Department of Labor Career Centers or to government agencies.
And why is that?
Well, you hear all the rhetoric on the news about the VA and how difficult it is, and they've come a long way. And I'm not going to say whether it's difficult or not, but the stereotypes and the impressions are out there, and perception is reality,
Unfortunately,
right?
yes.
And so folks are hesitant sometimes to reach out to those organizations and agencies. At Boots to Roots, the folks who work one-on-one, if you, Toni, you're in Texas and you're getting out of the Army and you've been in for 6 years, whatever, and you reach out to us, I'm going to have a conversation with you first and explain to you about what Boots to Roots is about, and then say, hey, I want to hook you up with your teammate, your volunteer team. We call them frontline teammates.
Okay.
And we call the folks that we're helping teammate because in the Air Force, you have your wingman. In the Navy, you have your shipmate. In the Army and the Marine Corps, you have your battle buddy.
Yeah.
But all of us can relate to the word team
Yeah.
and teammate. And so the folks who are coming back, we call them our teammates because it really is a team approach. And it's really folks who've been there, done that, teaming with the folks who are about to do that and helping them along the way, lending a hand. And so our frontline volunteers who work one-on-one with the folks who are coming back, we have a requirement for them that they've separated or retired within the last 5 years.
Right.
That they've been there, done that fairly recently, and that they're settled and they have a job and and they're stabilized and so forth. But so if you reach out to me and you hook up with your frontline volunteer and you're getting out of the Army and that person says, yeah, hey, I did that 2 years ago, let me tell you what I did, but you automatically have a bond with that person.
You do.
And there's a Marine that we helped recently. He actually reached out to us a month before he got back. So we did a full court really press trying to really get stuff in line for him. And I say get stuff in line with him. We're not doing stuff. I mean, this is
You're doing it with them.
a meet and halfway thing. But he, on our Facebook page, we posted a video from our fundraiser in November. It's posted on the 30th of November. And our teammate gives a testimony. And one of the things he mentioned specifically about Boots to Roots is that not only were we talking about the resume, which is painful for most people, and myself included, interviews, all the other stuff, but also that we're able to talk about our time in the service and have someone to connect with that way. My unit was actually supporting his unit on the ground in 2009. He was on the ground in Afghanistan. We were in the air overhead providing close air support, and there's a bond that you connect with.
Sure.
And also one of our teammates called, who has a job now, and we talked and called and said, I just wanted to call you because I'm frustrated with my supervisor right now because he's at a more entry-level position, and he said he feels like he could do the supervisor's job with his hands tied behind his back. This is just one example. But and I said to him, I said, I know, it's the humility and just we have to sit back and learn, and so it's a transition in a lot of ways, and having somebody who's been there, done that, not just in the transition, but also on the military side who kind of understands that and helps translate
that
things.
means a lot.
It just makes it a more helpful process.
Well, because you understand,
Yeah.
I mean, getting somebody in there who doesn't have that kind of background could not identify,
Right.
could not relate at all.
Right. And we're trying to work with civilians to be able to understand so we can relate. I had a conversation with a woman one time. She was wonderful. I met her through networking, and we had coffee, and she was very impressive. And then she asked me what I did. And I tried to explain it, and I tried to explain my job in the military, how the hierarchy went and how the different sort of chain of command went, and I tried to relate that to sort of a business model that she would understand. And at the end, she said, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But that was eye-opening for me, and I said, well, why would you have an idea?
Wouldn't.
I don't have an idea about insurance.
Yeah.
I have an idea about how to lead, how to manage, and so, but those specifics of that industry, I don't. And so that's one of the areas where we really want to focus on trying to connect with employers more and say, we've got this great person over here who has, leadership, all these soft skills that folks are looking for, team building, team player, initiative taker, problem solver, critical thinker, all these things, and motivated and loyal, but how do I bridge the gap to get some of that? How can we prepare them to get some of that industry background? Is there a training program, or is there something they can do while they're still on active duty to be able to create that? And so education is a part of Boosters too that we eventually would like to get more education out there. We are limited in resources at the moment.
But my question here would be, okay, so you're approaching businesses in Maine, right? Seeing what they're looking for. So the men, women on active duty, when they come here, they can interview for a job. How is that working, just so?
It works in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
We're not, so I'm speaking at as many places will ask me to speak,
Okay.
Rotaries and so forth, trying to get the word out about Boots to Roots. We are a member of the Portland Chamber of Commerce, and the networking is the main reason for that. The networking to be able to hook good talent up with Maine employers.
Yeah.
You know, we really do fit into, you know, Senator King mentioned at one of the Eggs and Issues breakfasts at Portland Chamber, he mentioned that he had five concerns that he had for the state of Maine in the future, and his number one concern was lack of people and lack of, you know, bringing good fresh talent into Maine, and that's what we're really trying to
That's
help
what you're trying to
facilitate
do,
here. So
yeah.
we really do fit into that piece of the puzzle. So we're a member of the chamber. We just recently joined the Maine Energy Marketers Association, which has a few hundred members, I think, of oil, gas companies and so forth in the state of Maine. And that membership also helps to pay for the training center courses that they have up in
Fantastic.
Brunswick, which is a 3-month course specialized in oil and gas and HVAC. In fact, shortly after I met with Matt Morrison, we got a new teammate to reach out to us from the Air Force. And we worked with Matt, and that course is covered by the GI Bill.
Oh, great.
And they have a very, very high placement rate. I think it's an over 90%. Don't quote me on that number, but I think it's over a 90% placement rate for folks who come out of that course. And so our airman is starting that course in February. And so all of these connections, you know, and the career centers have been working with employers for a long time, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. If I think that there's a career center who has a relationship with an employer of a company that somebody that I'm working with is trying to look for, I'm going to contact that career
Sure
center and
you
say,
are.
do you know the HR person there? Are you connected with them? Let me give you this resume. Can you talk to them? So we're trying to, and just networking wherever we can, and trying to build some relationships. Now, I don't have a huge pool of people, so I'm not this bank of folks. It's when people reach out to us, and some folks don't come back here for up to a year. We're working with a colonel in the Army right now who is in Brussels, Belgium. He doesn't get back until September. We were working with somebody who is in Pennsylvania who doesn't get back until July. So there's all sorts of time frames where people, you know, are coming back, and so sometimes we can build a relationship with somebody and they can project out and say we're looking for, you know, somebody here. But it's really just continuing to get the word out, continuing to keep people thinking about Boots to Roots, keeping our ears out there, our board members and our volunteers, keeping our eyes and ears out there for who's hiring, what they're hiring. And the career centers send out these job bundles on a daily basis, which it's not all the jobs in Maine, but it's a conglomeration of various different emails they get and so forth. And they put it in one kind of document and forward it out. And I'm on the email list, and so I send that out to all of our teammates on a daily basis.
That's great.
So they can look through that and see if there's anything that, you know, looks like they're interested in it. And then even if it's something they're interested in, but they think it's too far down the line, we encourage them, let's do a resume for it. Let's put it together, get the job description, and put in for it. It may be too far down the line, but they may look at your resume and say, we need somebody right now, so we can't take this person now, but we might be able to use them down the road.
It never hurts. It never hurts to let people know you're there.
Right.
I really do believe that's the whole secret. Letting people know you're there. Continue with talking about it, networking. Word of mouth is the best.
Absolutely.
The best advertisement ever.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that you have to keep talking.
Right.
Can't stop. Because if people don't know you're there, then you're doing something wrong.
Right. And that goes for the folks we're trying to reach out to and also the folks around the state.
What about the people coming back who do not have a family? Perhaps they're coming back to, you know, they're single, no children. They want to fit into society again. I mean, with that, I mean, I'm hoping you have a lot of those people reaching out to you as well? Those are the ones I find that are a little more lost.
So far, we have not gotten a whole bunch of single folks reaching out to us.
Okay.
And again, we just got incorporated, got our 501c3 status in May. We don't even have a full board yet, which I'll tell you at the end what we're looking for for volunteers. So but the word is getting out there. We just had two new teammates reach out to us last week, who are still on active duty.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't had a whole lot of the younger single folks reaching out to us. And again, that's they typically they're hesitant, I think
so too.
to reach out.
Yeah.
Now, if they do reach out, there's a number of different things. It depends on what kind of education they have. Do they want to pursue it? There's so many options for those folks because they don't have a family. So if you have a family, you're coming back to Maine, and somebody says, "Oh, I can give you a job for $12 an hour," it's like, I'm sorry, I can't. But if somebody is going to pursue education full time with a post 9/11 GI Bill, and they can get a housing allowance. They get a housing allowance with that if they're going full time, or if they're going part time, they still get a housing allowance, but it's not, it's not as much. It kind of depends. But you can essentially pay rent while you're going to school with the GI Bill. Or you can there's apprenticeship programs out there that the GI Bill, this training program at MEMA, the Maine Energy Marketers Association. So there's a lot of different options. I would say the options are so much greater in some respects. Or the flexibility, let's put it that way, not the options. The options are out there for everybody, but the folks who don't have the family have a bit more flexibility, I think, when they're coming back.
Well, I think too, some people become very, very shy.
Yep.
And, they don't reach out as they should because they are shy, or they're thinking that's not for me. And I think the fact that you are consistent with helping as you go forward, that part of it hopefully will go and disappear.
Well, and here's the other thing. When folks reach out to us, we're fully connected with the Maine Military and Community Network.
Yeah.
And so, when people reach out to us, we don't only say, okay, here's the resume part. Okay, do you have a house? Do you need a realtor? Do you need, what are you looking for here? Do you need help, a contact about the school system, whatever. But also, oh, by the way, here's some organizations that, recreational-wise, that you can get involved in to hang out and have a peer group with other veterans, like Team Red, White, and Blue, for instance. That's just one example of many. Also, the Maine State, there's a Maine State transition person named Wendy Moody who's amazing, who sends out all this information about veterans, things that are going on in the state of Maine. That's great. Free lift tickets for families, you name it. She sends out information on personal financial counselors. If you're a veteran, you can get free financial counseling if you have credit issues, or if you are going to foreclose on a house, or there's folks who can help with VA loan information. There's all this information out there and all these different things that we try to plug people into that information so that they have access to a peer group, going to go do a run and go get a meal with a peer group, or you can get involved in this other thing. Or, by the way, Big Brothers Big Sisters, or the Susan B. Curtis Foundation is looking for mentors. That's a perfect connection also, because everybody coming back wants to have a purpose. Everybody wants to have a purpose, but everybody that I've talked to coming back says, I want to serve the community. I want to make a difference. And that's a standard thing for everybody. And so there's so many different ways of how folks can do that, but we hook into that. Are you familiar with the Maine Military and Community Network?
No, I'm not.
So the Maine Military Community Network is really, it's a network of networks, if you will.
Okay.
There's a website out there. It's MMCN, Maine Military and Community Network, and that's "and" for a reason.
Yeah.
And so there's 10 different groups. There's a York County Maine Military and Community Network. I'm actually a co-chair of that one with Amy Marcotte, which meets in Sanford every 2 weeks, or every 2 months, excuse me. There's one in Portland. There's one in Brunswick. There's 10 of them, like I said, and on the website it lists them all out. And anybody can go and attend these meetings, and there are a couple hours every 2 months where people get together. Veterans organizations, education, universities, Pine Tree Legal is there, all sorts of different organizations that have a vested interest in serving veterans and serving our communities. And so the folks get together and basically go around the room because there's always somebody new. There's always new people there. The state of Maine is there, Department of Labor is there, everybody's there. The VA is there. And everybody goes around the room and introduces themselves and tells what their organization is. And then there's usually a couple guest speakers that come in to provide information that folks aren't aware of.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Avesta Housing, for instance, gave a talk at one of the Portland meetings. We had Laura Allen from the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services come down and walk us through the website in York County, and she did that in Portland too. So it's a way for us to gather all this information. And oh, by the way, most of the contacts that I have are through that network for resources. And that network is critically important for what we're doing in Boots to Roots, because I'm not an expert in anything.
Yeah.
I know how to take care of the troops, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not an expert in anything, but these other folks all are experts in certain areas. I'll give you a for instance on a couple of the connections that we've made. Easter Seals has a military and veterans program. They have caseworkers. They help a lot of folks who have barriers to employment, a lot of veterans who have barriers to employment, and they also have they have various grant sources for various purposes. And we had one of the teammates we were working with who came back who wanted to go to the police academy. He has law enforcement background, so he's not starting from scratch.
Right.
And he was looking to get hired by one of the local police stations in his area. And so, but when you have your GI Bill benefits, you can transfer those benefits to your children or to your spouse. His spouse was in the middle of getting her degree in the nursing area, and so those benefits were already given to his spouse, and so he wanted to get his police academy, and they have 4 small children, these two, without having to use a GI Bill for it, but was looking for, are there any grants out there, potential. So I shot an email out to all the email addresses on this Maine Military Community Network, which all the different agencies do when they have an issue that they can't solve, or they have a problem, or they think somebody else can solve, can help them solve this for a veteran in need.
Right.
So I sent the email out and I said, does anybody have any information on, any particular grants that we could utilize for this purpose? And I got a couple different emails back, and then one of the women that I worked with from Easter Seals, who I'd met and networked with and had been working with from the Maine Military Community Network, she reached out to me and she said, have him reach out to us, because I'm not saying we can definitely help him right now, but we might be able to, and we could probably find somebody who can. And so she said, where does he live? And I told her where he lived, and she said, well, that's another person up here, so have him call the referral line. And I said, no. I want him to call you because I've talked to you. I want him to have that personal connection from someone I've already talked to. And then if you want, and can you please explain to him what you explained to me? And then if you want to transfer him within your organization, that's fine. She said, I totally get it, no problem. So she reached out to him, and between her and her colleague, and they were able to actually help him with grant funding. And so he actually is in the second, or he went through the police academy, and he got hired by that local police station, just got sworn in last week, and he will be starting his local training this week. And so that's one example of just one of the connections that's made. Connections with realtors, with the personal financial counselors, with the career centers. The career centers also have a program which is amazing in conjunction with Hilton Honors, which it's a fantastic program where if you are a veteran or soon-to-be veteran and you are actively job searching in the state of Maine and you're enrolled in the Maine Job Link, through the career centers, that an organization can refer you. There's a gentleman named John Wagner who works at the Career Center in Brunswick. He's fantastic. He's wonderful to work with. He administers this program for the Department of Labor here in Maine. And you send a sheet of paper to him and basically say, Boots to Roots is referring this individual. Here's the situation. He's on active duty and for instance, driving back from Florida to Maine. And so it's really for job searching, for house hunting, if you're job searching. And if you apply and get accepted, then Hilton Honors will put 100,000 points on a Hilton Honors card for you. You have to go online and enroll first and have a card, but that's free. and as long as you have your own credit card for incidentals
Yeah.
that you have to put down, you basically can get 100,000 points, which can serve up to 4 nights in a Hilton property, so that if you're house hunt, you come back here to job hunt
Yeah.
or have an interview,
Yeah.
you can stay, use that benefit, or if you're doing your last move up to Maine, coming up here to live, and then and also job searching. So we've had 4 folks who have utilized that benefit, and it's a fantastic benefit because it
Sounds fantastic.
it takes
yeah.
a lot of stress off. Like my Marine who came up from North Carolina has, 3 kids, and they were, hadn't sold their house in North Carolina yet and hadn't gotten hired yet, and a lot of stuff going on, and
Yeah.
just a matter of being able to say, my hotel room is paid for tonight, because it's just one less financial thing that you have to worry about as you're transitioning. So
There's so many things you have to think about.
yeah, so it's a wonderful
are.
program, and
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that these veterans coming back are all overwhelmed.
No,
It's
no.
overwhelming,
Yeah.
and there's a lot going on, and it's a huge life transition, and we're helping team with them, and it really provides a peace of mind, which is what I've gotten feedback from a few of them on. And so all these different programs are really amazing in helping that transition go smoothly, so that person can really find their way
Right.
and find their way into the community of Maine and really start contributing, because I'm telling you, the veterans in Maine are huge contributors, not only to the mentoring that goes on with Maine's kids in our
Yeah.
future, but also the innovation that's going on in some of Maine's companies, the leadership that's occurring in some of these mid-level management jobs.
Sure.
And everybody that I've talked to who is from Maine, who's serving the military, who's planning to come back to Maine, wants to come back to Maine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes they don't if they can't get the financial stability here
Yeah,
that they're
and
seeking.
what you're creating, you are becoming a solution to a problem,
Part of a solution,
part of a solution. You are
part of a puzzle.
part of a puzzle. And it's like if you can be the problem or a solution, but you're really taking this and you're building it slowly and the right way to help people. You really are. I
Thanks.
mean, this is so much information, which I'm sure the audience, love it, but you're learning. I always want our audience to know what their options are, their learning options, and with what you're doing, and you need help and volunteers, correct?
Yes, I do.
So let's talk about that to the audience.
That'd be great. So we are upgrading our website, like I told you, and we are working frantically to get our volunteer sheet onto the website. We have a one-page spreadsheet that lists our volunteer positions and what we're looking for. We don't have a need for volunteers right now to
Yeah.
sort of work at events and so forth, because we're not there.
Yeah.
We need really targeted volunteers as we're building this organization. And we need board members, we need committee members, we need frontline volunteers who are the veterans I told you.
Yeah.
We need, I need somebody to help me with development and grants.
Yeah.
And I need really a few resume helpers. There's a lot of folks out there who do that. There's a lot of folks you can pay to do that.
Yeah.
We work with various folks to do that right now, who are sort of out of the goodness of their heart helping us out, who have other commitments. But if we can find a couple few folks who really are up to date on the latest and greatest, there's a lot of folks who want to help out,
Yeah.
but really it's being up to date on the latest and greatest trends in what companies are looking for in resumes to help
Sure.
folks with this, to help us with that. Our board members, something that we feel very strongly about, and the founder is adamant about, and I agree with him 100%, is that our board cannot be made up of more than half veterans. It has to be civilian.
Yeah.
The more civilian we can get on the board, the better, because the integration piece, we're learning from each other, our board is learning from each other. And a lot of the civilians who have been here and have contacts in various areas, they're providing an education at the same time. we are getting educated by them, we the veterans are getting educated by them on how to translate things
Yeah.
and fit in. And so part of reintegration into society, the main part of that is reintegration, coming together.
Exactly.
And so we're very, very adamant about having folks on the board who we have about half and half right now. And I've had a lot of my, military veteran friends say, "Oh, I'd love to be on your board," and I would love to have them, but I tell them, be on one of our committees
Yeah.
right now. It's important to have the board diverse, and this is why, and they understand that. So that's what we're looking for on the board. We really want folks who have been in Maine, been connected to Maine, who are passionate. The prerequisite for all these positions is that you're passionate about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so we have 4 committees, and we have just created these committees. And right now they are, made up of board members and me. But we are working to get volunteers on these committees. And the one committee is our development committee. And that's anything to do with fundraising, financial strategy. We don't have a huge budget.
Yeah.
There are 2 main things that we really are looking to do, though, in this year, where we need to raise a significant amount of money to be able to do that. Number 1 is to find a location. I'm working from home right now, which is fine, and we're working with a lot of folks, but to have a place where folks can actually come by, that we can meet with people, that we have a physical location in a fairly visible area is an important thing eventually.
Absolutely.
The sky's not falling because we don't have it, but it's something we're working towards. And probably it's going to be in the Portland or surrounding area. We're working statewide, but that's sort of a central location where there's a lot going on, there's a lot of contacts and so forth. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, actually that's number 2. Number 1 is we really want to hire. We don't have any hired paid employees right now, but really want to hire somebody to work with me, so that we have somebody who we can split up some of these duties, get the networking out there, build up our volunteer base, build up our volunteer training, the networking piece. So we really need somebody, and I can't get a full-time person unless I pay them. And so,
true.
And so that's what we're working on right now. And obviously, this is the first year that we've been in existence, so we're working on our first annual report, our first 990 EZ for tax purposes and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of things that we're working right now. Having more volunteers on our committees will really facilitate stuff. So we have the development committee, we have a communications committee, which is really, it's more than just marketing, it's communications, it's how do we make our website look better? It's Facebook. It's someone wants to volunteer who's a great writer who wants to help us capture testimonies, not just from the folks that we're helping, the teammates, but also from employers, from volunteers. And so, and that all falls sort of under the communications committee. There's a finance committee, which is really bookkeeping, which I desperately need somebody to help with that. And then the finance, development, communications. What is our other committee? Oh, the program committee. That's the one I run. That's the program. That's the important part. Or the most, important part is the making sure that we are making those folks reaching out to us our priority. And so those are really the volunteer areas that we're looking for. But our spreadsheet has a description of the committee, a description of the time commitment, or that's all flexible, but the approximate time commitment, so people understand what they'd be signing up for, and then what that committee does, and then what the desirables are. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to fit this criteria, with the exception of the frontline volunteers. They have to. We're kind of hard over about that because that's very important to the connection with the teammates. But everybody else, those are sort of desirable skill sets that you might have, but sometimes a passion about what we're doing and an eager desire to help out is worth its weight in gold. And so those are really what we're looking for on the volunteer side of things.
Well, I hope the audience took notes. No, I think what you're doing, you're starting off, like I said before, in the right way. You're building, you're networking, you're talking. And It's been a year,
Almost.
almost a year. You've accomplished a lot. I mean, from a business owner myself, you've accomplished a lot in a year. You really have. And what you're doing is not an easy thing to do because you have to be on every day. You have to be looking and searching. But congratulations, because you have accomplished a lot.
Well, we have a great team, Toni. We really do.
You'd have to have a great team to be able to do what you just did. I mean, we have talked for an hour, and you have covered so much, which has been so great. This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted you on the show for.
Great, thank you.
To really let the audience know what you're doing, what you're looking for. I mean, I know there's so many people out there who would love to donate time, who might be retired and they were, you know, a writer, a newspaper writer, or this or that.
I'll tell you along those lines who we have. We have a volunteer who is our interview guy. I call him the interview guy.
Yeah.
He is an amazing gentleman. He is a Vietnam vet, was in the Navy in Vietnam. He owned a consulting business for almost 40 years, I think, and just decided to retire from that. He actually reached out to the Maine Bureau of Veterans Services, to the director, and basically said, I am about to retire and I want to give back, and I want to give back to veterans, but I want to give back to veterans in an area of my expertise.
Yeah.
And so she referred him to us. And I met with him for 2 hours, and he was just a phenomenal, phenomenal guy. And he has agreed to be our interview person. And he has worked with various universities and other programs on mock interviewing in the past. So he's up to speed on that and fairly knowledgeable in that. And so he now is on our team. And anybody who is going to get an interview, we ask them to please get a prep session with our interview guy. So it's a perfect. It was just a perfect match. It was, you know, we were very, very fortunate.
You were very
to have
fortunate,
him reach out in that manner. So hopefully we can get some resume people to reach out in that manner, and some other folks, and that'd be great.
Well, I think this is the way we start, and I think you should come back on the show, like maybe in 2 months again.
Be happy to.
And see where we're at. You know, so the audience can see your growth, understand what's happening, which it's just more word of mouth. It's putting it out there.
Right.
We're going to have to stop for today, Jen.
Thank you so much, Toni.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the show.
I really, really appreciate it.
Of
and
course.
On behalf of all the teammates, current and future, we appreciate it.
Of course, I'm there. I'll promote. I'll put you out there, and I will talk about you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank our audience for taking the time to watch our show today. Hope you learned a lot. If at the end of the show we have your phone number, right? Or we have your information.
We have the email and the Facebook page.
Okay.
And the website. I am happy to take phone calls. It's easier to reach out to me on email because I'm on the road so much, and then I get back within 24 hours. So. Okay.
Perfect. So go look at the website, read everything over, reach out with an email. Jen will get back to you in 24 hours. So don't be shy. Help her out. All of you help her out. I'm going to help her out somehow. So I want to thank all of you. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.